As a family caregiver, are you feeling overwhelmed, stressed out by the never ending demands of caring for your loved one? Maybe you're feeling hopeless, on the brink of burnout. We're told put our oxygen mask on first, take care of ourselves. And you're wondering how, when everything in your life is spinning out of control. And that's just today. We get to do it all again tomorrow. It can feel daunting. You can find yourself wondering, does anyone care? Does anyone even see that I'm hanging on by a thread? In a world where we spend so much of ourselves caring for our loved ones, it's easy to feel unseen, forgotten, isolated, maybe even a little lost. And then you combine that with the never-ending demands of caring for your loved one and the fear and anxiety about the future. Combine all of that with the loss and grief. It can feel unbearable. I get it. But what if it could be different? What if someone offered you a lifeline, a way up out of the pit? Can you imagine a path leading to a more empowered future, one where you're rising above the adversity with renewed hope, where you're not feeling helpless and stressed out all the time? Sound impossible? Well, I want you to meet a woman who spent much time in the pit, stuck in survival mode, and not unlike you, she was feeling hopeless. She felt like no one cared. Let's rewind 28 years. Chris and I, we were living in sunny Colorado, living what many might consider the great American dream life. We had the house, the 2 dogs, the 2 kids, a boy and a girl. We were active, busy, well plugged into the community. And, even though our son AJ was born with some trauma at his birth, he was your typical 8-year-old boy, right? He could ride a bike. He was playing t-ball, loved to play outside with his sister, sing, talk all the time, much like his mom. Well, you see, it was 2 days after Christmas 1995. Both kids had gotten a viral infection and were treated with antibiotics. Well, our daughter Lauren got better and AJ did not. It's as if a switch went off in his body and it went crazy. And he had these painful spasms and unusual torque-like twisting movements. And within less than a week, he lost the ability to walk, talk, use his hands. As this unimaginable storm just massively disrupted his body and our lives forever. Well, what followed was weeks of hospitalization and lots of testing. And ultimately, AJ was diagnosed with a rare neuromuscular movement disorder called generalized dystonia. Well, for us as a family, our life was disrupted forever and changed. See, everything familiar in our life was erased in a moment, and we were left with all the unknowns, haunted, wondering, how in the world are we going to do this? And you see, life seemed split in that moment into a before and a now what. Days became months, months became years, marked by endless doctor's appointments and therapies and caring for AJ's needs while caring for a busy family and an active life. And you see, there was disappointment after disappointment from treatments and surgeries that had promised so much hope, never delivered. Yet it's our love that propelled us forward and an incredible determination to overcome the obstacles and provide for our kids as normal a childhood as possible. You see, I was no stranger to hardship and heartache. I had grown up in a family where my dad was an alcoholic. My childhood was scarred by sexual abuse. And as an adult, I lost my mom after a long battle of cancer. And I fought hard for a marriage that had been impacted by infidelity. So it's no surprise to me that I attacked AJ's diagnosis with an intensity and a determination of a storm chaser. You see, I was an occupational therapist by degree, control freak by nature. And with a mama bear instinct, I set out to fix things or die trying. And the sacrifices were many. I left that professional career. Eventually, I lost the freedom to spend time and hang out with my friends as I once had. And I sacrificed leading women's ministry eventually. All things I loved. My only identity became as AJ's caregiver. And as others saw a strong woman who seemed to navigate the challenges with ease, inside, I was dying. And my only companions seemed to be disappointment, defeat, discouragement. My home became my tomb as I sunk deeper and deeper into the pit of despair. And in that pit, I learned a lot of things. I learned how to cope. I developed a lot of unhealthy habits. You see, I tried to get comfortable in that pit. I'd rearrange the furniture, redecorate it a little bit. Didn't know how to deal with all of the emotion. And so I tried to comfort it with food and numb it and escape it with excessive busyness and shopping. And I slowly faded over about a 22-year period. The cost of caring for our son, all of those years, that devotion that propelled me forward, well, I lost myself in the process. 6 years ago, something changed. I'm not sure exactly what, except I had this awakening as if I was woke up from sleepwalking for years in my life. And it was prompted by a picture. You see, everyone in this particular picture looked happy, had energy, except for one woman that I barely recognized anymore. And that woman was me. And she looked miserable. You see, she was overtired, overwhelmed, and overweight. And she seemed to be carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And quite honestly, she was. And that moment, I realized that I had been walking in excuses and I had been a victim of my circumstances for far too long. And that was the reason that I was struggling and stuck in the pit. And you see, I knew that if nothing changed, neither would I. And actually, that if nothing changes became a mantra that I used as I began to learn how to care for myself again and find my way back to me. And it started with a physical health journey. And I began to address the weight issues that had followed all of the emotional and stress eating that I had been doing. And so, yes, I found a simple nutrition plan that worked well for me. It had an accountability component, community, and individual coaching. And that was the catalyst for so much more change that followed. But the biggest thing that stood out to me was the fact that my circumstances didn't change, but I did. And I went on to become a health coach and pay it forward because I knew that so many other people like me were struggling, caught and stuck in a pit. And so since that time, I have coached about 400 clients personally and impacted about 2,000 lives. That opened other opportunities for me. I've been able to share my story in 3 different books, as well as speak at women's events and podcasts, and even a syndicated radio program. But most importantly was the change that I was experiencing in my own home and how I showed up to my day. As Chris often says, Shelley got her life back and I got my wife back. Maybe you're listening today and the things that I've shared are resonating with your heart. And maybe like me, you're not content either. And you want more out of life than simply surviving. You're desperate for change, but you doubt it's even possible for you. I get it, but don't believe it because I am living proof that change is possible. And guess what? It's not the result of your circumstances changing. And so I'm going to ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to break free from the shackles that have been holding you stuck? Maybe tap into your purpose and unlock your potential? How about renewed sense of hope? Could you say goodbye to burnout with some personalized strategies, maybe a supportive community as well? Regain control of your time and your energy so that you too can live your life with joy, confidence, and purpose. And if you're saying to yourself, yes, I am so ready, and maybe your heart's just racing a little bit, and you're feeling just a twinge of hope for the first time in a long time, I would so consider it a blessing and an honor to hear from you, sit in your story, and spend a few minutes with you. Because maybe this is your lifeline and your way up out of the pit, you know, to live that high calling of caring for your loved ones, but not doing it at the expense of yourself. But you know what? First, you have to take the first step. And I think it's the hardest first step, and you need to reach out for help. But I'm going to ask you a question. What if you don't respond? Nothing changes if nothing changes. So go ahead and take a chance on yourself. You're going to thank me later. So simply schedule a time that works best for you. We'll explore all the possibilities together, and you can live your best life now. And I want to say thank you for spending a few minutes with me, and I cannot wait to meet you too.